There are many different types of traps that we can get involved in. Uh, Oftentimes, we don't see the trap that we get into. It falls into, different cliches that we hear, like, I'm okay. I'm just fine. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to go outside the box. There's just a number of them that we talk about. The reality is that just in my case, I started in 2007. I I was looking for I was looking for something to do because the real estate development opportunities in Minnesota were drying up because banks were not funding projects for small developers like myself back in 2006, 2007. A long time ago now. Anyway, the my desire, at least in the beginning, we had no plans of sharing this. I just realized one day after I probably had 15 or 20 trades made, and I just, how much profit did I make on this one? How much did I lose on that one? That was the only thing I even looked at, just a real basic check, because I was inconsistent. I was making money, I was losing money, I was making money, I was losing money. There was no consistency to my trading. And so I had to figure out what was wrong. I made my first trade and I thought it was going to go up. I had built absolutely no indicators. And many of the first indicators I built were not sensitive indicators like I have today. They were just different types of indicators, which I thought was the solution. Not recognizing what I was doing. But when I built that first indicator, I thought I had a system. And then a few weeks later, I had a few more indicators, and I thought I had a better system. And I went weeks and months like that, thinking I was improving my system, and I was doing nothing but building more indicators, not realizing which ones worked or why they worked, if they worked. I was in that trap of thinking I was all right. I didn't want to disturb the status quo. And I didn't realize that I did not have a system. And in fact, it was years later before we finally narrowed all the indicators that we made down to about 50. We ended up with 40 total indicators that we use, but somewhere around, before we got rid of the last few, we were trying to determine which ones to get rid of and which ones to keep, and we were seeing patterns. We were seeing movements with indicators that showed us significant price increases or decreases. And those patterns we ended up putting on the pattern types up and the pattern types down. And there's 20 some in each group. And those became the patterns. And then with good conditions, keep in mind there's bad, poor, and good conditions. And there's bad, poor, and good market force pressure conditions. And that's basically what it was that we were capturing. When we had good conditions with a particular pattern, we then saw that pattern go up with a high, very high probability. I mean, over 95% of the time. Because we just basically hand-picked our trades. Every trade we make is a high probability trade. The trap I did not even see until the day that we realized that these patterns with good conditions, and then we saw signals when to get in and out of the trade that gave us that knowledge of timing, because that's critical for any day trader. But when we put those three together, the patterns, the conditions, and the signals, we then had a formula. It was built. We didn't have a group of sensitive indicators. We now had a formula, a process, a procedure in which to analyze, determine, search, and either eliminate or accept, compare one against another. Good conditions with patterns. When I did the document on traps, I encourage you to read it. But I wanted to do a short video on this because some won't bother reading it, I suspect. The trap that there's two issues that we're involved with. There's trading selection issues, the trades we make, and there's the system that we use to find the trades. And obviously the system is much more important than the trades we make, because the system will hopefully move us to the proper direction, or excuse me, to the proper stock, the best choice at that particular point in time. And so the system is by far the most important aspect to consider. But you know what? If you read the traps document, you'll find that I decided that I was going to do some trading, and while I was trading, I was going to look for a system or a formula or a method to get better at trading, to eliminate my inconsistency problems. I wasn't doing the work of a developer. In this case, the developer of a software item. I was trading, I was looking, I was thinking I should find something, but I wasn't taking the steps like I took the steps when I developed real estate and analyzed the market and compared the lot expenses and determining how much profit I could make if I sold them at a certain price, and then verified what my competition was doing based on the lots that they had. That whole process I wasn't even doing when I was trying to find a system inside of trading stocks. And that is very, very, very important. With that system that we have now, every single trade we have is a high probability trade, because we pick a specific pattern, then we find the good conditions for that pattern. If they don't have good conditions, we don't enter that position. We find a pattern with good conditions, and we trade it. And the probability of knowing which way that price is going to go on that particular stock at that particular point in time, we have a high probability of knowing what's going to happen. And we keep it till it hits the peak, and then we exit the position, at least if you're a day trader. Swing trading, you can do the same thing. You can see the long-term swings just by looking at the information. All that being said, it is extremely important that you see that the system is the most important thing that you're using, because without that system you have nothing. You have whatever your system is right now, whatever your methods are right now, that's the system that you have. Can you find market strength in a indicator? That was one of the critical things we knew we had to have right from the beginning. We knew we had to identify market strength of a movement. A BOC pattern, it's a V-shaped pattern, ABC, C is today. It's a V-shaped, but it has the right leg longer than the left leg. And that longer left leg pushes out farther. The market strength is a larger force, recognizable force, tracked with the indicator line length. So a BOC higher pattern has more force to it, and that's day one. And so you recognize movements that are going to take place day 2, 3, and 4. You know, again, based on your analysis at the end of each day, because you can identify situations where the candle is not going to go up the following day. And so the trap is not using the best system, not recognizing that you don't even have a system. And this is one of the key things that we try to share with people, because the system sounds like it's expensive, but believe me, many people, the system is $179 a month, and many people make with the first trade they make, they return that fee with ease. I encourage you to think about where you're at if you want to continue your occupation as a trader, because we've got a system that finds gaps before the gap, and the system that we developed is if you don't understand it, it's basically a reversal system. We decided that because reversals were oftentimes stronger, we decided we needed to be able to identify the strength of a movement in a particular turnaround, in a cycle change, either a high cycle going down or a low cycle going up. Obviously, gaps up or down are strong first day movements, but there are many others. And BOC patterns at the top of a cycle are a real strong push up. It's like there's too many buyers entering the market. There were too many buy trades made. And so a BOC higher pattern, especially a BOC higher pattern in which the leg is 3, 4, maybe 10 times longer than the right leg is 10 times longer than the left leg. And that's seen a lot. It looks like it might only be 2 or 3 times, but when you punch the numbers on it, you'll find that it can be much bigger. So those BOC higher patterns are designed, or normally happen at the bottom of cycles. When they happen at the top of the cycle, they're a high pressure going up, which results in a high pressure going back down. Many times in the gap formula, there's those 3 patterns in the gap that we identify, and we see how gaps work. Those 3 patterns are in the 20-some patterns that are in each group. And they're basically the identical patterns, the downtouch patterns, and the proximity group patterns. And those 3 together in certain conditions give us the insight into knowing whether we're going to see a gap or not. And so, unless you have a system that is, how do I tell you that the competition out there is way beyond what you think you might be incurring sitting there at your computer? You've got some very smart people, some very highly trained people. There's 2,000 people in a room in several places in the United States And those men do nothing but buy and sell. And they've been doing it for decades. Your competition is severe, and you need to know that. And this system gives you the edge that like no other system I've ever seen. We knew we had to have that market strength, both in as a result of identifying that market strength in normal cycle changes. It then evolved into identifying and picking up gaps. And one of the proximity group has the Power 4, the yellow, pink, blue, and white line, and along with the Power Zion line, those are the 5 lines in the proximity group. And many times, the Power 4 and sometimes Zion are in a BOC higher pattern and result in a gap down. So there's lots of information to think about. I just wanted to this video has gotten longer than I wanted to make it, but I did want to cover the issues of how we can fall into traps and not even be aware of it, not be knowledgeable of it. And most of all, you have to compete against the best. And it behooves you to buy the best system that you can find. So we encourage you to join us. That is your decision. But many, many people out there are basically in high competition against you and what you do. So be aware of that. Have fun. The system gives you confidence. The system gives you independence. The system gives you knowledge about market forces and market pressures. And you can see those pressures occurring before they occur the next day. I mean, we couldn't find gaps before the gap if we didn't have that power. So it's not an absolute power. Don't misunderstand me. Everything has conditions. It's basically you match up 3 pattern groups, and then you analyze the supporting evidence that goes along with it. Because you might have 15 or 17 identical indicators, and you have to have one down touch in an uptrend on the trend chart. If you don't have any, you cancel it because you don't have a gap. And there are a couple of exceptions, but they're few and far between, and they're not worth chasing. The issues that you find in these gaps are just amazing, and they can be compared, they can be tracked, they can be visually seen, identified, and effectively purchased before the gap occurs. But you have to have the sensitive indicators. They're the heart of the system. Without those, we got nothing. Because with the sensitive indicators, we finally found the patterns and the conditions, and just put the whole system eventually together after many years. So that's what it's all about. I hope you're having fun trading. I really encourage you to join us.